As the sun dips below the horizon of an ancient African savanna, shadows stretch long over the golden grasses. A small band of early humans gathers around a freshly killed antelope. But what unfolds next is anything but the noble image of a simple hunt. One of them takes a stone and cracks open the thick leg bone, raising it to his lips and sucking out the rich, warm marrow as if it were broth from a can. Another carefully drives a flint shard into the skull, prying it open to scoop out the brain matter within. These weren't delicacies, they were survival tools. For hundreds of thousands of years, such practices fueled the growth of the human brain and body. Without them, modern humans as we know them might never have emerged. Walk down a grocery aisle today, surrounded by colorful produce, packaged meats, and a dazzling array of choices, and it's nearly impossible to grasp how desperate and inventive our ancestors had to be. They lived in a world where every single calorie had to be earned. But these ancient humans were far from primitive scavengers, they were masters of adaptation, eating with intent and ingenuity. The real story of what early humans ate is far more fascinating and at times far more unsettling than the tired cliché of a fur-draped caveman wielding a club. To understand how we got here, we have to travel back in time millions of years to rediscover the strange, surprising, and sometimes revolting meals that kept our species alive through ice, drought, and danger. Roughly 400,000 years ago, in what is now Israel, a breakthrough occurred. At Kesem Cave near Tel Aviv, archaeologists uncovered something remarkable: bones that had been deliberately preserved, not for ritual but for nutrition. Our ancestors had figured out that bones weren't just food, they were nature's containers. Covered with skin and stored for weeks, these bone cans locked in the fat-rich marrow inside, keeping it edible long after the rest of the meat had spoiled. Far from chaotic foragers, these humans were planners. When hunting luck ran dry, they could retrieve their cache, crack it open, and feast. One long bone from a large animal could deliver up to 1,500 calories, precious energy that could mean the difference between life and death in the wild. And this wasn't just fuel for movement. Marrow is packed with fats essential for brain growth, a key piece of the evolutionary puzzle. Bones found in Ethiopia bearing cut marks suggest that humans were harvesting marrow at least 800,000 years ago. The human brain demands energy about 20% of the body's entire output, double that of other primates, explains Dr. Jessica Thompson, an anthropologist. That hunger for power likely nudged our ancestors toward calorie-dense food sources like marrow, shaping the very direction of human evolution. Still hungry? How about a crunchy snack of termites or a mouthful of wriggling beetle larvae? It may sound unthinkable now, but for millions of years, insects were a dietary staple for our ancestors. This isn't speculation, it's written in our biology. Chimps, our closest relatives, still dig for termites with sticks. That behavior dates back to a shared ancestor over 6 million years ago. And it didn't stop there. Fossilized human feces confirm that insects remained on the menu even after we began crafting advanced tools. Grasshoppers, crickets, beetles all were regular fare. This legacy lives on. Today, roughly 2 billion people across the globe still eat insects as a normal part of life. In Thailand, fried locusts are sold like potato chips. In Mexico, roasted grasshoppers chapulines are a traditional treat. Far from novelties, they represent continuity with ancient eating habits. And insects aren't just abundant, they're nutritional powerhouses. Some species contain up to 80% protein by weight, along with healthy fats, fiber, and crucial micronutrients. Most importantly, they're reliable. While large animals could vanish during winter or drought, insects remained accessible year-round, offering a dependable safety net. Even cave paintings from 30,000 years ago show people collecting wild bee nests, evidence that these tiny foods were important enough to immortalize an art. Perhaps the most unsettling staple of early diets, however, lies in something we now find almost unthinkable: animal brains. Across ancient sites, skulls have been discovered with specific, deliberate breakage patterns. These aren't random cracks, they're surgical strikes aimed at accessing the rich, fatty brain tissue inside. Professor Jordi Rossell, who studies prehistoric hunting, points out that hunters often transported only the skulls and limbs back to camp. Why? Because brains are packed with omega-3 fatty acids, nutrients critical to neural development. For pregnant women and growing children, they were irreplaceable. The act of cracking open skulls wasn't just widespread, it may have even shaped our evolution. Research from the University of Kent suggests that the force required to break skulls contributed to the development of the human hand's unique strength and structure. Some groups even crafted tools specifically for the task. It was messy but brilliant, a strategy to survive when times were tough and options few. For decades, science believed meat alone was the hero of human evolution. But in 2024, fresh evidence from a Moroccan cave challenged that view. Remains of humans from 15,000 years ago showed that plants, not meat, were their primary protein source. Underground tubers like wild yams, cattail roots, and water lily bulbs formed a major part of their diet. Tubers are common even today in parts of Africa. Some regions have over 40,000 kilograms of them per square kilometer. But eating them raw is difficult, they're fibrous and tough. The turning point came when humans discovered fire. Cooking softened these roots, making their starch digestible and unlocking vital energy. This change may have triggered another leap in brain development. At Shanidar Cave in present-day Iraq, Neanderthal food remains suggest they weren't just boiling plants, they were flavoring them with herbs like wild mustard. As far back as 70,000 years ago, our ancestors weren't just surviving, they were seasoning. They were chefs of survival, creating the world's first cuisines with what the land offered. And yes, the image of a hunter spearing a mammoth isn't wrong, it just isn't the full story. In Ice Age North America, mammoths weren't a rare treat. They were a way of life. Analysis of the remains of a 13,000-year-old infant known as Anzaquan showed that mammoth meat made up nearly half of his mother's diet. One mammoth could feed a community for weeks. But they were more than food, every part of the animal had a purpose. Hides became clothing, tusks became tools, bones became shelter. This abundance allowed groups like the Clovis people to travel farther, faster, and survive in harsher environments, fueling one of the greatest human migrations in history. But here's the twist: prehistoric humans didn't just rely on fresh meat. They mastered the art of preservation. In cold climates, they dug storage pits into permafrost, creating ancient freezers. Elsewhere, they dried, smoked, or fermented their food. In Europe, researchers even found evidence of primitive butter animal fat sealed in containers made from bladders or skins, preserved for months without spoiling. These weren't conveniences. They were survival strategies, ingenious methods to stretch scarce resources through long winters or failed hunts. Ultimately, the story of prehistoric food isn't just about what was eaten. It's about how those meals shaped humanity itself. Bone marrow and brains fueled brain growth. Insects offered protein in lean times. Tubers, when cooked, released energy that helped build societies. Mammoth hunts empowered migration, and food preservation meant safety in the face of uncertainty. Early humans weren't aimless eaters. They were adaptive, creative, and incredibly resourceful. Even your modern cravings and digestive abilities carry echoes of that ancient diet. Your fondness for fat, your ability to digest starch, the dexterity of your fingers, all born from survival. Many of the foods that built us now seem revolting, but they were lifeline solutions to ancient problems in a harsh world. And with modern science unlocking new ways to study ancient remains through isotope analysis or traces of food stuck in prehistoric teeth, we're only just beginning to appreciate how nuanced those early diets really were. From coastlines rich in shellfish to forests full of insects, prehistoric humans learned to thrive wherever they went. And in a future shaped by climate change and shifting food systems, their ancient resilience might be more relevant than ever.